Welcome to the English with Kirsty podcast from www.englishwithkirsty.com. Here I'll be sharing with you tips, information and other learning resources so that you can improve your business English.
Everyone, and welcome back to the English with Kirsty podcast. And I've got another special guest today, and this is somebody I really wanted you to meet her because she's done a lot of cool stuff this year. We met at the end of last year, I think, when Marta started coming to my conversation club, and then she did the challenge. I ran a challenge at the beginning of the year to help people to think about new ways that they can improve their English. And she was one of the really, the people who really got involved with that. Some people, I'm sure they did the exercises, but I didn't hear from them. But we had conversations and Marta made audio messages. And I know that can be a strange feeling at the beginning when you start listening to your own voice, but she did it. She went through it and she did all the exercises. And then later this year, she actually presented at the Conversation Club, which I know she hasn't presented in English for a while. So that was like a new thing. And now she's here on the podcast. So I can see that that you've grown in confidence, that you've tried new things. And I think that's really good for anyone who wants to improve something, to put yourself in positions where you do new things and you try you improve your skills and you do things that may be a little bit uncomfortable, but the results are good in the end. So it's worth it. So that's a long introduction. Maybe you can tell us a bit about who you are. So what's your name and what do you do?
Thank you, Kirsty. Thank you for inviting me. This is my first podcast interview, so it's very exciting to be here.
It's good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Marta Pagans. I'm a translator. I translate from English and German into Spanish mostly, and sometimes into Catalan as well. I started as an audiovisual translator, but over the years I moved into marketing and advertising, which are my main fields of expertise right now. 2 years ago, I started offering consultancy services to colleagues, to fellow translators and interpreters. I help them to get better organized, to make more time for the projects they care most about. I help them with marketing and online marketing topics. And what I enjoy the most is I help them to be more brave and to believe in themselves more, to show up on LinkedIn, for instance, or with their own website. And this is something I find very, very satisfying.
Yeah, I think it's important to do things that you enjoy and help other people to do things that they enjoy and to manage their time as well. And I guess that one of those things is saying no, because I remember when you came to talk to us at the Conversation Club, that was one of the things that we talked about. So in the past, was it difficult for you to say no at work? And if so, what changed for you? How did you change that?
Well, I think it's been difficult for me my whole life, both at work and in my personal life as well. In fact, I have a little story for you. I started freelancing just after graduation more than 20 years ago. And back then, a colleague of mine, a fellow translator who knew me fairly well, said to me, "Oh, Marta, you speak so many languages and you can't say no in any of them." Yeah.
Honest feedback.
Very witty, yes. I thought, okay, this is true. This is really true. This is just the way I am, I thought. And I didn't do anything about it. And back then, I didn't think I could do anything about it. But fast forward 5 years ago, I had a kind of revelation, if you want. I signed up for an online program about time management, and we would meet twice a month or something to discuss our problems. And I noticed very quickly they kept asking me the same once, again and again, this same question. And it was, Marta, why didn't you say no?
Mm.
Yes, this situation is very stressful, but why didn't you say no? Or, Marta, this client might be very nice, but she's manipulating you. Why didn't you say no? So I thought, okay, maybe I should learn to say no. Maybe I should learn to set boundaries, which
Mm.
in the end is the same, really. So over the last few years, I discovered some strategies that work for me. And today I can say no. It's still not always easy,
Mm.
but I manage most of the time.
And I imagine that feels much better for you. Like, what are some of the benefits that you have now that you've learned more about saying no to the things that aren't right for you?
Well, I do feel much better about myself. I do feel less stress,
Mm.
and I do have more time for the things and the people I care most about. And at work, I would say I have much better clients now,
Mhm.
better paying clients,
Mm.
and more understanding clients as well. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because I came to realize I was saying no the whole time without saying it. Because if I said yes to this assignment over the weekend or in the evening, it meant I was saying no to my partner or my family or to exercising or going out with my friends. And at the same time, saying yes to helping out at my kids' school or helping my neighbors or chatting with them in my working hours or taking a personal call meant less time for me, for Martha, the translator, and meant more stress and working in the evening or in order to meet the deadline. I realized every no is a yes to something else, to the things or to the people I care most about. And this has been very helpful, I think.
Yeah, it's also ultimately it's a no to yourself. Like a yes to the wrong thing is also a no to yourself, to self-care, to spending time with people that you want to be with. So there's never no cost involved. So if you say yes to something, it means that you have fewer resources, less time, less energy maybe available for the things that you really want to do.
Yes, definitely.
So how would you say that knowing ourselves and our values helps us to say no?
Well, for me, this was my very first step in this journey, if you like. I started observing myself, paying attention to myself in different situations, and writing this down like
Mhm.
journaling, sorry. And I find it very helpful because I found some patterns Like if I'm tired or in a hurry, I don't make good decisions.
Mm.
And if people are very nice to me, I tend to forget my needs.
Mm.
And I even noticed some of them were manipulating me, which
Mm.
is not a very nice thing to do.
No.
So I realized I'm a people pleaser. I'm a, a very nice person. I want to be nice to everyone, and I want everybody to be happy with me. And this is, of course, not possible. You cannot please everyone all the
Mm.
time. So for me, the answer was to be more aware of my values, of what's important to me, and I reflected on my values too. And I would ask myself, what do I want in life, or who are the most important people in my life? What makes me happy in the long term? Or even how do I want to be remembered as a professional, as a woman, as a friend, as a mother,
Mm.
and as a freelancer as well? How much do I want to earn, or do I need to earn? How many hours do I want to work, and when and with whom? Who are the clients I really enjoy working with? So knowing all this and keeping all this in mind has been crucial for me to feeling much more secure when saying no. Can you relate?
Yeah, I think this is something that I think we need to know ourselves, and it's a constant journey of discovery. I'm always finding out new things about myself, especially in the last couple of weeks. And I think
Oh,
it's good. The better you know yourself, the better you see how you react in certain situations, and you can learn when you're maybe more vulnerable to making bad decisions. I guess, yeah. When I'm when I'm tired, I'm more likely to say no to everything. Like I go the other way. I'm not very friendly when I'm tired. Um,
okay.
so sometimes if I'm feeling like that, feeling tired or whatever, I usually don't say anything, and then I will think about it again the next day. I don't let people rush me into making decisions, because sometimes that's when we make the worst decisions. So I'm kind of learning how I respond to people, and thinking about what I really want as well, because one of the other things is sometimes something was okay for a while. I don't tend to say no to things that I really don't want to say yes to, but sometimes I don't reevaluate. Is this still working for me? Is this still serving me? Maybe it was okay last year, but maybe now there are other things that are more important. And I want to shift my focus to other things, and therefore I have to make room for the things that aren't working anymore. And so what may have started off as a yes may need to become a no, because some things aren't forever, and you need to look at the resources you have, the energy you have, and where you want to use them, where they can best serve you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, this would be my first tip, actually. I
Yeah,
have
let's move
three
on to the
tips for
practical
you.
tips. Okay.
Yeah, and this would be my first tip. Uh, Take your time before you answer.
Mm.
And I mean, if it's an email, is easier, but even on the phone, I think you should take your time before you answer. Maybe you could say, "Oh, I don't know yet. I have to have a look at my calendar," or "I have to think about it first, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can," or "First, I have to talk to my children or my partner, I don't know, my colleague."
Mm.
And I think it's very important to take this time and really think about it. And I ask myself, can I do this? this thing, this favor, this person is asking me to do, and then, do I want to do this? Because as a freelancer, I can always choose, but in the past, I didn't. And even as an employee, we should learn to talk open to our boss and say, look, I can take on any more projects. Or if I do, I wouldn't be able to keep the deadline for the other ones. The way I see it, if we are more intentional about our decisions, this will help us to avoid feeling trapped. Because in the end, after thinking about it, I might say yes. I might say yes to this assignment, which is not very interesting, but I need to earn the money. Or, okay, this assignment is not very well paid, but it's a good opportunity in this new field. Or, this time I want to do this client this favor. And for me, it feels very different.
Yeah, and I think the point that you made about, do I want to do that? That's not an intellectual decision. There may be things that you need to consider and like the positives and negatives of doing something, but do I want to do something? That's more like an emotional response. How do you feel about that? If I have to do this, how would I feel? If I said no to this, how would I feel? And sometimes thinking about that can help you to discover what you really want, because you're not just seeing it as something in your head. You're thinking about how you actually feel about this, doing this thing or not doing this thing. And if you feel a great sense of relief about not doing the thing, then the chances are you probably don't want to do the thing.
Yes, I definitely think we should trust our gut a lot more. Do you get that? Trust our gut?
I'm kind of learning trying to learn to be a bit more open to doing that, because you can try to rationalize everything, but sometimes you know the right thing to do, and you just have to listen to yourself a bit more, and to be open to doing that.
Yes, absolutely. So my second tip would be that's important to remember that you can say no and still come across friendly. You can say no without being unpleasant. And I have even, or you could even come up with some friendly phrases that work for you and that you know by heart, like, oh, this is a lovely idea, but, or thank you for asking me, but, or please don't tempt me. And at work, I use templates a lot, and I found them very helpful because I write them once and I can use them again and again.
And I think that's good, because if you use a template, for example, then you're not under any pressure when you write it. You can write it when you feel calm and nobody's waiting for a response from you. But if you try to find the words when you're already stressed, that's actually harder. So templates are good because there's no emotion at the beginning when you're writing them, because it's not a real situation. And then you can apply it to these real situations that sometimes come up.
Yes. And you even can show them to other people, like, do I come across friendly or is this too harsh? And in my case, I write a lot in German and in English. And sometimes I want somebody, a native speaker, to look, to take a look.
Okay, so that's 2 tips. Is there one more?
Yes, the third and last one. So this is something I like to call the flexibility trap. When an email arrives asking who has time on Monday morning, I don't know, for helping out at school or for a meeting of my translator association, most of the time I will have time. There's no one who says that I have to work from 9 to 5. But this means I will end up working in the evening or on the weekend. So I have a trick. I ask myself a question, and this is, if I were an employee, if I were a lawyer or a doctor or a teacher, would I take a day off? And I know if one of my daughters performed in a school play, yes, I would try taking a day off. But for, I don't know, baking cookies at school, for instance, which I do not enjoy doing, I would say no without thinking about it. So this question helps me a lot to set my priorities right.
Yeah, because you don't have any time you're not working, you have to catch up somehow. And I think, yeah, if one of my best friends needed something, I would rearrange my diary if I could to accommodate that. But if somebody just wanted I don't know, wanted me to do something and it wasn't somebody that I was working with or felt particularly close to, then I would say no. But you're right, if there's an actual cost, like I have, I don't know, 30 days of leave if you're an employee, and will I give one of them for this thing? And if the answer is no, then yeah, that's your answer.
Yeah, it is.
I think it's good to reframe things, to think about them in a different way, and to take the time to do that. And sometimes it's not so difficult to do that in your first language, but this is a podcast of people who are interested in learning English, learning other languages, and sometimes there are additional challenges associated with doing this in another language. So do you have any advice for this situation?
Well, this is a tough one. For most of my working life, I've been living in Germany, but I would say it's important to find out what works well into your target culture. How can you say no and still be friendly and polite and still be understood as being a no? For instance, in Germany or in German, you communicate in a very direct way.
Yeah, I like that.
I like it very much now. At the beginning, I found it surprising, let's say. Um, Sorry. But in German, you can say, oh, no, sorry, this doesn't work for me, or no, sorry, I don't have the time. And it's all right. It's perfectly friendly and okay. In Spain, however, you would definitely have to add why. You would say, oh, I have another appointment, or I will be working long on that day, or whatever. And I feel we would be still too direct in a British context. But
Yeah, the British context has the other problem, though, that sometimes the reply can be so indirect and so like it doesn't commit to anything, like, oh, I'll think about it, which probably means no, or I'll let you know, which probably also means no, but it maybe means yes. So even as a British person, I don't always understand what's going on. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it's hard because in an attempt to be polite, people are actually not communicating very well for anyone. So it's true that it has to be culturally appropriate, but at the same time, it's also good to to get your message across. And if the answer is no, not to be so ambiguous that the other person has no idea whether you said yes or no.
yeah, absolutely. Do you have some advice on this? Because I could, as a language teacher, what would you advise us to do?
I would say there's a balance, so that you, as you say, it's important to be appropriate for your target audience, and also remembering that there's also a big diversity in that. There will be English people like me who are quite direct, and German people who are more uncomfortable with a direct approach, so that there's always going to be some variation, but also that it has to be like you. It has to sound like you as well. And I think sometimes that can be a bit harder in an additional language if you don't have all the words available to you that you would have in your first language. Like, I think sometimes in German, in the past I've tried to explain too much because I thought maybe something wasn't clear because it's not my first language, whereas actually less would have been more. It would have been better to be a bit more succinct and to the point. I think sometimes people can come across a bit abruptly in English when they don't mean to, because they haven't learned some of the phrases that go around, declining invitations, or sometimes it can sound a bit less friendly than it's meant to because people weren't sure how to do it. So I think it's good to observe how other people behave in those situations. You can maybe do that in the office, or if you don't work with others, you can maybe, I don't know, you can, if you listen to real speech and find ways of listening to real people's speech, whether that's online or in series, if you like those, in podcasts, see how people interact with one another, because that will give you an idea what sounds good or what sounds a bit abrupt. And sometimes you might want to be abrupt, and if that's what you want to do, then that's also okay, but you need to know how you're coming across and then to decide whether that works for you, whether that's what you were going for. So I think it's good to really listen to and observe how other people interact with one another, and not to compromise yourself, because I know that I am somebody who does like to be quite direct. So even if I'm working with people who don't, I need to respect them. But I also think you can't lose who you are. So you still need to sound like yourself in order to feel authentic. But the more knowledge you have about how other people do these things, the better informed you can be about how you want to do them.
Oh, this is great. I'll keep this in mind.
Yeah, be true to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes people are just not going to like it. You can be as nice and kind and polite as you want, and they still don't like the fact that the answer is no. But then, that's more their problem than yours. If you did your best, if you did it in a nice way, you're not going to please everybody all the time, and that's maybe harder if you do tend to be more of a people pleaser. But at the end of the day, you can't please everyone, so do your best, but understand that if you get a bad reaction, sometimes it might be nothing to do with you. It's more their response to the situation.
Yeah, I would say even most of the time it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
So we met on LinkedIn, but where can people find out more about you? Where's the best place to connect with you?
Well, my website is at marta-pagans.com, Martha without an H, and Pagans like pagans in English. I have a blog on my website, and I send a newsletter once or twice a month, although these are in German, I'm afraid.
Oh, we have German listeners. That's all right. We have German-speaking listeners, so that's good.
Great. And as you said, we met on LinkedIn. I'm fairly active there, and I'm always happy to be connected with new people. So if you want to get in touch, just drop me a line. That would be lovely.
So I'll put all the links on the show notes page, to the website and your LinkedIn profile. And yeah, thank you for sharing your tips and ideas with us today. Thank you for coming on the podcast, and thank you for being brave enough to do that, because I know it's your first podcast, so it's great to have you here. And yeah, have a great day, and I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
Yes, I'm sure too. Yes, we will. Thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun, I must say.
Me too. Okay.
Thank you.
See you soon.
hope you enjoyed this episode of the English with Kirsty podcast. If you have any questions or comments, my email address is kirsty@englishwithkirsty.com, or you can go to www.englishwithkirsty.com/podcast, where you'll find information about the individual episodes.